Welcome to the Gold Standard here on the 440 Sports Network. I am Braden Gall. That is Emma Lingan. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. A little early today, but I figured we'd go live with all of you, even if it was a little bit early. Emma, how are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good night. What time is it?
Good day.
Good day. Good day to you, sir.
It feels like I think I'm doing better than you are. Sounds like
Ugh.
you're struggling with something over there a little bit.
Yeah. It's like week 2 of school. Or week
Mm.
3 of school, I don't even know. And so the kids are bringing back things from all of their new friends in classrooms, and my wife and I have been on one the last couple of days. So bear with me if I get all my words wrong today on the show. Hopefully it's entertaining, but it may not make sense. So we'll see. We'll see what happens today on the show. You know, it does make sense though. If you need a beverage, go to Sinkers Beverages, and it's not last night, and it's not tonight. But tomorrow night, a hot toddy sounds pretty good. I don't know if people in the South know what that is. But it's like boiling water, a little bit of lemon, a little bit of tea, and then a little something extra to help you go to sleep. Brandy, maybe some bourbon, who knows? But if I need that, I'm going to go to Sinkers Beverages. And I don't even have to leave my house if I'm not feeling good. I can just search Uber Eats, Sinkers Beverages, and have that booze come right to my house if I'm still in bed at some point. So we'll see. Otherwise, how are you doing, Emma?
I'm great. I have no children bringing home various
Yeah.
bacteria from schools, so I'm doing okay right now. But
Good to hear.
definitely sending some healing vibes your way.
Are you doing better than Brady Martin currently?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I am, because I did not just sign a 3-year entry level contract with an NHL team. So, or the NHL team specifically that drafted me 5th overall. So no, I would not say I'm doing better than Brady Martin. So I'm somewhere between Braden and Brady Martin on the wellness scale, I think.
The wellness scale. That's good. We need like a chart. Like we can just move like we need like big blown up faces on a temperature gauge where you can just it's just a wellness chart. We move our faces up and down on the chart based on how many tweets you get about UC Soros. We can just that's what affects Emma's wellness more than anything else. There was some comments. Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault, I guess, did some interviews up in Canada in other languages. I think it was a charity event, correct? And this was a couple of days ago, 4 or 5 days ago. And so we'll get into their comments. And honestly, it sort of forces me to think about the message that they're putting forth in those comments, which I think are totally fine. I just think the message around what this team actually could be this year is interesting to me. So we'll get into that a little bit. Some news and notes around. We don't have a Luke Evangelista update yet, but the big piece of news, of course, is mostly a formality, right? That Brady Martin signs this contract. And I know we had some talk on the Lower Broad Hockey chat and the Lower Broad Hockey subscriber group about Brady Martin's 9 games. I know you're sending back to juniors, and I'm team sell some tickets in the first 8 games of the season. But I can see both sides. I see both sides. But otherwise, it's basically a formality, right? It's just a way to get him locked up permanently for at least a couple of years.
Yeah, it's part of the NHL's agreement with the Canadian Hockey League and with Junior that it's all kind of a formality. They have a limited window to sign those guys to those ELCs, but then again, it doesn't really kick in until he's played, as you said, more than 9 games in the NHL. So really, technically, I would be team make him the one under 19-year-old or under 20-year-old who's allowed to go to the AHL, but sadly, that does not come into effect until the next CBA, which kicks in 2026. So because I do agree that he's kind of one of those special cases that I don't know that he has a lot more to prove in junior, but I'm still not team put him in the NHL. And like I said last week, it has less to do with him and more to do with the rest of the team.
Remind me when he does go back to juniors, this is all based on sort of like backdating his experience in juniors, right? To get to a certain point before he can go to the AHL. So if they do send him back without any time in the NHL and he goes back to juniors, how long does he have to stay there? Do you know?
I think it's based on his age. So it's age based, I think, until he turns 20. Unless if it's that season though, like that season once he goes back, it's like a full season. But because this is the year, he's not turning 20 this year. He would turn 20 the next year. So, yeah, it would be once he goes, he's there until the end of the year. So,
yeah. So 1 full season at least, and maybe a second full season, is what it sounds like you're saying. So again, it's all backdated on like when you turn a certain age and how many games you've played, and et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get some finalized notes on that. The other one, and good to see you, Josh. Afternoon. Our house is in the same boat. At the beginning of school. Illnesses. Yep. Luke Evangelista still has not signed a contract. And the only thing I can think of that makes any sense is that they're just too far apart on money, because Occam's razor will tell you that the most logical explanation is probably the explanation. What's going on here? What do you expect to happen?
I think they get it done. I think they get something done before the start of training camp. Like, I don't think it's going to be anything that drags into training camp or preseason. I think it's just, it could really just be one of those things where it's like, look, we know this is going to happen. We just like don't have all of the minor details hammered out yet. So maybe we wait until closer to training camp where we can get everyone in the same room, because everyone will be here at the same time and we can just hammer it out there. Like, I would imagine that's the most likely explanation. It's not that they're just like fully at a standoff. I think it's just, a lot of that stuff tends to happen right around training camp, because it's when you get players and agents and GMs like actually all physically in the same place, and it's easier to kind of hammer out those details.
Everybody's on vacation right now. They're all off doing stuff.
Yeah.
I should have said, like, the most logical explanation is that they're a little too far apart on money, and that there is no rush to get anything done right now. That's the other part. Is
Also
like you don't need it done until he starts to miss things that you need him to do. Right. And that is training camp. So I think is that September 9th? Is that correct? That's off the top of my head. I think something like that. Second week of September is about when it starts, which, by the way, is way closer than anybody realizes or wants to think about, honestly.
Yeah. Can't come soon enough, though. I feel like this off season, and I don't even mean the Predators, I mean the NHL in general, this off season has felt longer for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because now I host a show on the NHL and the struggle to come up with things to talk about every week has been real. So maybe that's why it feels longer. But for whatever reason, I don't know, this summer has felt especially long.
Well, and
maybe
that does
just me, though.
That does kind of lead us into the Marsha Show's comments, but we'll get to that in just a second, because I do have questions about the offseason. But wrapping up Evangelista, I imagine it's a 2-year deal, worth $4 million or something, and, Luke wanted a little bit more. The Preds don't want to spend that much. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it's just, to your point, I think you get him in the same room once camp is close enough. The pressure of a deadline, the pressure of getting something done, the pressure of having him in camp to do the things they need him to do. It all builds on itself, and they get the deal done. My point is I don't think Predators fans should be concerned about it in any way, shape, or form. He is not going to another team. So
no.
It's just
when you say $4 million, you mean per year or total?
Total.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, well, we might need to debate that a little bit.
No, I've been ballparking $2 million a year ballpark for give or take negotiations, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's 1.75 and you get 3 years. I don't know what Luke wants in this particular situation. So we'll see. But I imagine it's a short-term deal with not a lot of money, not a lot of term, and it's done before the training camp, and he shows up and he's there and he's ready to go on day one. So everybody take a deep breath on that one. I don't think people are upset about that, actually, which leads us into your point that, like, it does feel so weird this summer. Like, last summer, we obviously had a million things to talk about with this particular team. And it feels like the year before that, lots of stuff to talk about with the changing of the coaching staff and all this other stuff. Like the year before that, the changing of the, everything. Like, there's been so much that Nashville Predators hockey feels like, and I don't want to say like an afterthought in the market, but it feels like people needed a break. I think people needed a break. And maybe I'm just stuck in like Titans training camp mode. And that's partly why my brain is distracted right now. But I think people just needed to put it down and walk away for a little while, because they're trying to flush last year. And from what Stamkos and Marchessault are saying publicly in interviews, they're doing the same thing.
I think you have to. I mean, absolutely nothing good will come of just sitting and stewing in the, atrocity that was last year. I think that, I mean, similar to you with football, but for me, it's baseball. Like I've been in baseball land. So people are starting to ask me about the Predators. I'm like, what, can we just like give it a break for a second? Cause I think we all need to just take a break, step back, players included. I mean, you could feel it. It was palpable in the locker room, like just in that building toward the end of the year last year. It was just like, we like this end of the season cannot come soon enough. And it was just, again, when we say flush it, I don't think that necessarily means like, well, never happened. Remember it happened. Remember how bad it was and make sure it never happens again. And I think that, I've said this before, and not to oversimplify it, but based on everything we know, like last year should have been a fluke. Like we have no reason to believe yet that it wasn't, because that's why I think that this year is going to be very telling. Now, if they have another horrible start to the year and it looks like more of the same, then we know that, some more like significant changes have to happen. But overall, I think right now you can't get too bogged down in what happened last year when by all accounts none of that should have happened.
Yeah, and I think that's Marchessault's comments, and this kind of pushes us into this conversation. His comments were very much along the lines of what you're saying, which is, and Stamkos too. Like I'm paraphrasing here, but last year wasn't what we expected. Learn from it, acknowledge what took place, make sure you know what went wrong, how to fix it, but you got to move on, and you got to refocus. And so, before we get into some of the specifics of what they said, there's the thing that just keeps hitting me, because this is, I guess, what they alluded to, is that maybe I need to bring them up first, which is that Stamkos is basically talking a lot about off the ice stuff with his life going into last season that he took maybe for granted in Tampa Bay, where he's saying like, I knew this is, I mean, this is in my head. You tell me because you were inside the organization, but it's like, here's where I park. Here's how I drive. Here's who handles my equipment. Here's who takes care of this. Here's what, it's all the little things that make your journey from like your front door to the rink less complicated, more streamlined, more efficient. And while that seems like a silly thing to affect the way you play as a Hall of Famer who's been very consistent over his career, life changes are big. They do happen. They're human beings, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like Marchessault's were maybe more on the ice, as have been well documented ad nauseum. Also part of why we're all kind of tired of the conversation. But the thing I keep coming back to was the gist of their push in this interview and this conversation was that was an anomaly. We don't have to do much differently other than get back to being ourselves. And that by the nature of, and this was, I thought, like lowered expectations, like no one's paying attention to us. We're picked lower. We're not putting pressure on ourselves. There's not outside pressure. That because of lowered expectations and more like comfort in their day-to-day situations, that's going to automatically lead them to having a better season. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you agree that we all think they're going to have a better season. The question is how much better? And can you add 20 or 25 or 30 points and maybe work your way into a playoff conversation with those two things? And that's the thing that keeps landing on me. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really two different questions. Like, are they going to have a better season? I think so. I mean, it would be hard to get much worse, quite frankly. But the answer to that is yes. Are they going to be a playoff team? That I still don't know. And a lot of that, honestly, doesn't have as much to do with them as it does to do with the teams around them, especially the teams in their division. I mean, even adding 20, 30 points, they still might finish second from the bottom in the Central, which is crazy to think about. But I mean, they still could. And that's just because you've got Dallas and Colorado. You've got Utah's going to be making a big push. You got Minnesota and St. Louis never seem to really go away either. So it's just kind of Nashville and Chicago hanging out at the bottom, and very different situations with those teams. But still, I think that I don't think, well, I mean, like, of course I agree with it because I said the same thing. But, I think that last season, there was so much, and there's a lot to that with the off ice stuff. Like, as far as, where do I park? What do I eat? Who do I go to when I have questions about XYZ? Or, like the fact that I have to explicitly say XYZ because I'm not in the same organization that I've been in my whole career, where people don't just know what I want and anticipate my needs. It's just things like that that all takes adjusting. And so I think that I do think it's going to be better. I do think they're going to win more. Are they going to win enough to make a playoff push? Kind of, I don't want to say it's out of their hands, because it's not entirely out of their hands, but part of it is out of their hands. And that's why, where I come back to, playing in the Central is just such a bear for this team.
That reminds me, I do want to bring up a fascinating piece of litigation around the Utah Mammoth. I want to ask you about that in a little bit. I was listening to this fantastic hockey show from the Hockey News called The Wraparound. I was listening and I saw a clip of you guys talking about general managers that need to prove themselves this offseason. And, like, of course, Barry Trotz is on the list, obviously. But what I got to thinking about was, and along the same lines of what seems like the message from the players who dealt with the struggle and sort of not reaching their potential, sort of carrying a lot of that on a personal level, right? Like, to your point about how you felt in the building, like you could feel that everyone was pressing, right? Like, it's like they didn't press at all at the beginning of the season, and everyone was kind of like too chill and like too kind of just like, oh, you do it. No, you handle it. No, you handle it. And like, it got to the point where then everyone tried to like fix it all at the same time. And it didn't work because everyone was pressing like super, super hard and, just puckered up the whole time. Like, to your point, at the end of the season, everyone was just puckered up, the whole building. And what's interesting is that Trotz, I think a lot of the complaints about Trotz is sort of the pendulum swinging back and forth between, all right, we're going to go young, we're going to rebuild. And then Andrew Brunette has a great year. They go to the playoffs, they play Vancouver, they overachieve, they go on an 18-game point streak. And then I'm going to switch gears. And then a lot of folks are obsessed with the pen and pencil thing, which, God, if I could just give Barry Trotz one piece of advice, stop saying it. Just stop saying it. Just from a messaging strategy standpoint, just don't talk about writing utensils at any point in the future. No chalk, no dry erase markers, just nothing. Don't talk about it. But one of the things that struck me reading up on Stamkos and reading up on Marchessault, and then kind of thinking through the outside perception of the Predators and that Barry Trotz has to prove something. Doesn't he prove something to the fans? Go with me on this because it's a little half-baked. But doesn't he prove something to the fans by not doing anything? Isn't he proving to the fans that he is convicted in whatever strategy he was deploying last summer and the summer before? He hasn't fired Andrew Brunette. He's not trying to trade all the veterans, or at least as of right now. I think when you go sign Eric Halla, I don't know. That seems like you're kind of illustrating a bit of a plan here, which is a veteran piece who's old, who can be moved at the end of the season, or is not a long-term commitment. He said as much, like, hey, we're going to fix our defense. He did so. Hey, we want to let the young kids play. It looks like they're opening up space for that. It does feel, and I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm not saying it's the right plan. But it does feel like he's at least settling in on something that he believes in and is sticking with it. And by not doing anything, he is proving, at least to the fans, that he believes in the vision. Again, that could be a total failure. But does all of that mumbo jumbo make sense to you?
No, I think it does. And we've talked about, you and I have talked about that before, about you got to pick a plan and then stick to the plan. Like, even if whatever goes on during the season doesn't, even if it surprises you, you can't let that sway you from the plan. And I think when you look at this off season, versus last offseason. Obviously, very different. But like you look at the moves that were made this offseason, it all goes in line with what Barry Trotz is saying. You have to listen to what he's saying and then look at the moves that he makes. So bringing in Eric Halla. Eric Halla is not blocking a single young player from a spot. He is not, you're not bringing in Eric Halla to be your second line center. That's Fedor Svechkov's job. You're bringing in Halla to be your third line center. And that's pretty clear from here on out. And if there was, like a prospect who's showing that he is deserving of a spot, great. You flip Halla for whatever you can get at the deadline.
Sure.
It's easy. It makes sense. And then with the defensive additions that they made, Haig and Perbix, those guys aren't taking spots from anyone either, because like the guys that you have in the pipeline are not ready yet. Like, I mean, or they're not ready for that kind of responsibility yet. I mean, you got Andrew Gibson, who's like the only right shot defenseman in the entire organization now. And like, he's not ready to be a full-time NHLer. And that's fine, but you need to bring in someone who is. Enter Perbix, who comes in on a 2-year deal, enough to bridge the gap there. Maybe you re-sign him if you like him. If not, you let him go. I think it makes perfect sense. And so this comes back to everything that I've said before, which is that Barry Trotz is doing what he has said this offseason. He's doing what he said he was going to do. And everything that he's done has aligned with what he's saying about giving the young players the opportunity. Now it's on Andrew Brunette to see that through. And that was a major disconnect that we saw last year. And Barry Trotz was at fault for that last year, at least in part, because, before it was, oh yeah, we have these young players we're all excited about. Then what did he do? He went out and signed 3 guys in their 30s who were straight up blocking those guys. Like bringing in a Steven Stamkos is very different than bringing in an Eric Halla, because if you have Steven Stamkos, he's part of your core immediately. He has to be. Halla, not so much. So I think it's about like, you can still bring in veteran players, but they have to be a certain type of veteran player, a type that's easily movable, a type that's not going to block. They're going to support the younger players, but not block them from opportunities. And so I think Barry Trotz now, he'll never admit it, but I think he recognizes that he messed up in the offseason last year by bringing in the type of veteran players that he did. The kind of guys that you build a system around. And that wasn't the plan. That wasn't supposed to be what the plan was when he came in. So he's now got Andrew Brunette doing a very different job than the one that he was hired to do. And now I'm not making excuses for Brunette. I'm not saying, well, such is life. I mean, I get it. You're right. An NHL head coach. You have to be able to adapt. But I think this is Barry Trotz realizing, ooh, yeah, I didn't exactly make that easy for him last year. So let me go back to the plan. Let me stick with what I'm doing. And that's why he's giving Brunette a little bit longer of a leash. That being said, we need to see some adjustment there. You don't have Colton Sissons anymore to be your safety net, to be your second line center if you need him to be. Like you have to play the younger players. You have to. And I think that it's kind of, Andrew Brunette is going to have to be forced into this situation. And that's why this year I think is going to be so telling.
It is utterly fascinating, no matter what happens. If they are really good, much better, improved, and all the bullet points of the plan, they land and it hits, the veterans are 15 to 20% better, back to their normal. The rookies or the young players take a 15 or 20% growth step forward. Defense gets 15% better, and Saros is 15% better, which is probably the most likely conclusion. Not huge jumps, but like incremental improvement in a variety of different areas. And if that were to happen, they're better. Probably not a playoff team, but they're better. And what does that mean? If they're terrible, we know what that means, right? Like it's easier to see. Like if they're terrible, we know they're drafting another player. They've got to figure out how to get rid of as many contracts as possible and continue to go into a deeper rebuild for another year or two. If they're close to a playoff spot, they're going to try to win games and go to the playoffs. Like that is how competitors work. So what I think is interesting is to your point, it's telling no matter what. But I want to ask you about, I want to know, like, what does Barry Trotz in his moment of like private honesty actually expect to happen? Because the way you just described it are all these natural tensions between two different directions. And, you and I were texting before the show about like, how is the NHL, like I always believed that the NHL is one of the more clear sports in major sports in terms of like describing where we're going as a franchise. Like Colorado, garbage for 7 years, building in the top 5 to try to compete for a championship. Like Anaheim, San Jose, Chicago, these teams that are very clearly do have a direction. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Buffalo, clear example of it not working. But there's a kind of a clear direction. And then like the top 2/3 of the league are always kind of trying to compete, and the top third are really trying to compete. But I always thought that it was pretty clear. I also think in the NHL, I think baseball's in this group as well, where it's the clearest discrepancy between expectation and sometimes results. That sometimes teams have real high expectations, doesn't happen. Whereas like in college football, if you have great players, you're probably going to win a lot of games. In the NFL, if you have the great players, you're probably going to win a lot of games. NBA, if you've got 2 superstars, you're probably going to win a bunch of games. It's more predictable. Whereas the NHL is less predictable. But I always thought it was clearer from a direction standpoint. And I still don't think Barry Trotz, every time he talks about this, he kind of says the two things. He says, no, we're going to let young players play, but we've got to get our veterans back and let them compete at their routine or sort of normal level. So I still don't know what direction they're in. And I want to know what Barry Trotz actually thinks. Can you try to do both? And he said he said many times, I'm trying to thread that needle, right? Like that's the phrase he uses, which again is another sharp, pointy object he doesn't have to talk about. But like, it's just, I honestly don't know what he thinks. Like, I know he's like, oh, if we win and we have a 98-point season, we make the playoffs, great. Like he's excited about that. He's not excited if they're picking first or second, but in the back of his mind, he knows what that gives him. So is he just sort of like hands off? I've done this plan. Let's do this. And I don't really know what we're going to do. Like, I don't know where he's at on this in terms of what he expects.
I don't either.
I know what he would say to us, which is we expect to compete every night and try to win as many games as possible.
Yeah. We can all recite that spiel by now. But I think that, no, I don't know what he expects either. And I really do think like him kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth is a little bit of like, well, I've got all my bases covered. So no matter what happens, if the fans come at me, I can say, well, hey, I said this. And so like, it's a little, I don't know, it feels a little politician-y, but I mean, that's kind of,
I agree.
That's kind of the only thing I can, I mean, that's the only place I can land on that right now.
Man. All right. If you need great brisket and you need a great meal after this conversation, where should you go, Emma?
Shotgun Willie's Barbecue.
There you go. Best brisket in the city. Free parking. Mechanical bull. It's the only barbecue joint with a mechanical bull. You got award-winning brisket. You got great from scratch side items and desserts. You got the mix and match platter, which I think is pulled pork, ribs, and sausage. Pretty awesome. You can go get one of those platters. Just make sure you clear your schedule after that the rest of the day. But it's great. It's fantastic. It's delicious. Go check it out. It's just about 10 minutes from downtown right there, right off Briley Parkway on like sort of the north side of East Nashville. So you can go check that out just north of Inglewood, right there in Madison, off Briley. It's great stuff. Seekers Beverages, 4-time liquor store of the year. 40th birthday party was great. Hope everybody enjoyed that as well. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on this from a Trotz standpoint. We still have many more shows to go before training camp opens up, or at least a few more shows to go. So I don't want to dive too deep into the expectations around some of these young players, but don't you feel like 15 to 20% growth for everybody is about the right way to look at what a reasonable expectation is for the whole team? Like if you're looking at young players, if you're looking at the veterans, if you're looking at Saros, if you're looking at the defense, if you're looking at the shooting percentage that was historically unlucky, is it safe to just sort of add 15 to 20% to all of that and say that's probably a reasonable expectation?
I mean, I think that's reasonable. Yes. Now, follow-up question, is that going to be enough? Probably not. But, I do think, going back to the original question, is this team going to be better? And is it reasonable to expect them to be better? I say yes. Because again, hard to be worse.
only 2 spots. Only 2 stops. No, I think if you add 15% to the point total, which I don't know what that number would be. What is that about 12, 15 points maybe? How many points did they have? Would they have 68 points last year? Is that right? Because I think they need 30 to get to 98. So 10%, 10% is about 7 points. So if you add 10 or 12 points to that, you kind of get to that 15 to 20% range. That's 80 points. That's among the worst teams in the league.
Mm-hmm. I'm still not good.
Yeah, not good.
What did they have, 99 points the year before when they snuck in? Yeah.
31 point decrease. It's insane.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But you know what, though? Like, knowing where your parking spot is, that's going to help. I'm just kidding.
It's going to help. It's going to help. It's not going to help by 31 points, but it's going to help.
I'm sorry. That was kind of a shot at Stamkos, and I didn't mean it to be. It just sort of came out that way. I apologize.
It's okay. You're not feeling well. It's all right.
I'm sick. I'm on medication. All right. So let me. I want to read you, not read you, but I'm going to talk because I find this to be utterly fascinating. Because didn't when Utah named themselves the Yeti, didn't Yeti Coolers immediately file a lawsuit against them saying you can't use this brand, right? Which, by the way, is a fantastic name for a hockey team. Are we in agreement on that, Yeti? You don't like it?
I didn't like it as much, but I mean, it's whatever. I think it was not a lawsuit per se, but it was they filed with the patent office and then got rejected because of that. But yes. No, I don't know. I didn't like Yeti. I don't like Mammoth that much either, but I mean,
which name? Just forget all the legal stuff. Which is a better name? The Yeti or the Mammoth? Yeti's a better name, objectively, right?
Yeti's a better name.
Now Utah Yeti is a little bit of some marbles in your mouth. Utah Yeti.
Yeah, linguistically, it's a challenge, and I don't like that.
So get this: the owners of the Utah Mammoth have filed a lawsuit against a hockey equipment bag manufacturer to settle a trademark dispute. There is a company called Mammoth Hockey LLC. I don't know about you, but it looks like that started in 2014. And as soon as Utah named themselves the Mammoth, they filed this cease and desist letter saying that the 2 brands of the fans and the rival teams would not purchase its products. Fans of rival teams would not purchase their products. The team and the company both have mammoth-shaped logos and are associated with both Mammoth and hockey. I don't know what else you need to win a cease and desist on trademark infringement there. But it seems like not only did they not predict the Yeti problems, but they also didn't predict this Mammoth problem. Like, it was Utah Hockey Club. Like, why are we doing this? Predators fans are upset with the Mammoth for using the big teeth, right? Like, I've never seen, like, the Seattle Kraken was so well done from a rollout standpoint, branding, name. They tied it into the colors and sort of the some of the mythology of the area. Like, it seems like this. Did they not learn anything from Vegas or from Seattle on how to do this? Like, it was so well done. And even the color scheme was great. And they just have pooped on themselves multiple times every time they're doing this. It's the logo, the name, twice the name now. I don't
know. I don't
even have a question.
I agree. I agree. But I would also say, like, in fairness, this was not a traditional expansion scenario where it happened so quickly with the sale from, the Coyotes to now, the Utah Hockey Club. And it had to happen so quickly. So there were a lot of there was kind of a lot of adapt on the fly, even with their arena was not set up for hockey. Like, a lot of the seating was obstructed view seating for hockey because it's just like it's not built for that. So they're making a ton of renovations currently to their arena to be able to, make it better for hockey. And then all of this stuff, like we knew it was going to be a process. So I give them a little bit more leniency for that. Just, with it not, they didn't really have the time and the, for the proper rollout like they did with
Didn't have the time to do a Google
Seattle.
search.
Well, I mean, listen, that's on. I think probably what happened is they saw the Mammoth hockey thing and they're like, oh, we need to nip this in the bud right now. Before anything, they were just trying to get out ahead of it. But
so you're a I don't know, is multi-billion-dollar organization safe for most professional sports teams? I don't know if it's worth $2 billion, but like it's a massive financial equity enterprise. Like you're sitting around a boardroom and all of you are like, oh, we love Mammoth. Mammoth is great. Let's go with Mammoth. And I know there was a process involved, right? Like you said, but just check and see that there's a company called Mammoth Hockey. It's not like it's close. It's called Mammoth Hockey LLC. Mammoth Hockey intends to vigorously defend the litigation recently commenced against it by Utah Mammoth of the National Hockey League and protect its long-standing trademark used in connection with the hockey goods it has manufactured and sold for the last 10 years. That is from the co-founder of the company in a statement. It's just one of those where like, that's like the first thing you do. You're like, oh, wait a second. There's a Mammoth Hockey company. Yeah. They just screwed this up since the beginning, it feels like. Yeah.
I mean, maybe they saw that it was like a smaller company and they figured like, we can take care of these guys. I don't know. But again, I still blame, I agree it has been messy, but I still blame the shit show of an ownership group out in Arizona for that.
That's fair. That's fair.
So.
All right. Where can all the great folks find you and get your content?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, though I've been taking a bit of a break from Twitter. It's been lovely. But you can still find me. It is very nice. You can still find me on Instagram, same handle. And you can find my work twice a week on the wraparound at the Hockey News.
There you have it. Make sure you check out Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue as well. You can get to me on the internet at Braden Gall. Subscribe to the YouTube page, thumbs up, notifications turned on. And if you're listening on the podcast app of choice, we do appreciate you. Give us 5 stars. If you do not give us 5 stars, you are a hater. And that, of course, is how people find us. So we do appreciate that. And thank you to all of you guys for being available, Josh and Kevin, etc., for being here, Logan, during a little bit different of a time. We try to hit it at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays when we're live. Doesn't always work that way. I apologize. That's on me, not on Emma. So thank you guys for being flexible on that. I do appreciate it. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. For Emma and Braden, we will talk to you next week.